view closed captioning in an alternative language. And then we also have, for when it's time for Q&A, we'll be doing that through Poll Everywhere. So you can scan the QR code that's up in the corner of the monitor and go ahead and ask your questions, and then they'll be able to answer those for you as we go through the session. So to get started, we're going to be talking about from virtual gatherings to content drops, evolution and the future of digital events. And I'm going to introduce, I'll hand you that in just a minute, sorry. I'm going to introduce Katie. Katie is the I can't talk, it's been a long day already. It's day 2, right? She is the Chief Marketing Officer at FAIR. And so she will introduce the rest of the panel, but please welcome our panelists to the stage.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining us. So this is my first time speaking at ETL Vegas, but I am often on the stage at the London event, so it feels very bizarre to me to be, it's like the same event but just in a different country. It's nice, so thank you so much for joining us. So there's a lot of chat online you would have seen about digital events over the last years. We were just talking about how they're evolving. And the great thing about events like this is that you get to actually tackle those topics head on. As a community, we get to talk about them, we get to share our experiences. And I love this event because we're all here to support each other and to really understand what everyone else is doing and how we're going to innovate and keep on top of it. So I'm really, really excited for this session, and joining me are 3 experts in this space. So without any further ado, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So yeah, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Everybody hear me okay? Great. Hi, I am Ashish Satvedi. I'm from Box, and I drive strategy for awareness, demand, and customer adoption primarily through digital events, video marketing, and video productions.
Hi, I'm Lauren Wolf with Atlassian. And I am on the event technology team. We actually have our 5,000 person conference happening right now at the Venetian. So it's been a busy week. I've been in this industry for a very long time, and I'm so glad to see so many familiar faces from all journeys of my career here. I work on both digital and in-person events for our Atlassian corporate events team.
Can I just say how impressed I am that you've come and joined us? You look very fresh for somebody who's actually on site at the moment with an event.
Last night was my room service night, so.
We appreciate that. Sarah?
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Merrick. And I'm actually pretty recent to the event technology industry, but I love pouring through data. That's probably my hobby. And I look through all the financial data that comes in through the event technology industry and pour through it. And I try to look through gaps in the industry and what's going on through startups and things happening. And I'm particularly interested in how it's evolving currently, and consider myself kind of an event technology strategist of how we can strategize as a team to really improve the event technology industry as a whole.
Fab, thank you. So I think one of the things we're going to start off is talking about our experiences, because we're all here to learn from each other and share our experiences. So Lauren, I think I'm going to put you on the spotlight first as somebody who has an event at the moment. So could you share some notable examples of both in-person and digital events that you've been involved in producing, and how have they helped shape the business strategy?
Sure. I actually started in virtual events many, many years ago. And that's how I don't think anyone wakes up when they're in middle school and says, I want to be in event technology. But they just kind of found me. And I've done a lot of different events on I've been on the vendor side, the agency side, and now the in-house side. I worked on Dreamforce with many of the people in this audience. You know, just a little event called Dreamforce with hundreds of thousands of people. And that taught me a lot. Then I did in-person events at Zendesk. I was there during the pandemic. And then, you know, I had to raise my hand and be like, oh, you guys thought that virtual events were invented right now, but no, they've been around. So they'd shifted, and yeah, now I think we're all working on both in-person and digital events, some specializing more in some than others. But yeah, we have essentially our event technologists have double the amount of work that we used to, because each of the work streams are just, live events are just as hard as they were pre-COVID, and virtual events are just as hard as they were during COVID, and now we do it all. So I've done a lot of different types of events.
Yeah. What about you, Shish?
So I started my journey in events, just like you, Lauren. Digital events was my start, and that was back in 2013. Again, like Lauren mentioned, many people didn't even know that virtual events existed back in the days. I'm not sure if you guys remember those conferences where you had all these virtual booths and auditoriums, and it
I
was
tried to
actually
run a few of those, by the way.
What's
But
that?
I tried to run a few of those badly. Yeah.
That was my first job. The
Right?
little people walking around.
Yeah, and it was
I think
so fun though.
they filmed me on a treadmill with a green
No
screen,
way,
and then
did
I
you?
saw myself. I think that might still exist.
It was more fun for us to put together those events because you could design all those things, and we would have Easter eggs and stuff like that hidden all over the events, and our attendees would have a lot of fun finding them. We would give out prizes. So like that's what it used to be. And then all of a sudden, pandemic happened, and then the whole industry needed to do digital events, and it became like, all right, this is too much. All these experiences, we need to dumb it down and have simple events. And it all just started to become more about heavy content and rather than experiences. So we've learned a lot at Box. We've always had a digital events program. From day one, I've been at Box for 8 years now. From my day one there, we've had a digital events program. And so it's always been part of our business strategy, our marketing strategy, that through digital events, we are going to drive demand. That's just one of the tactics that we employ to drive demand. It serves a very different purpose for us than our in-person events. Now we're morphing more into how do we connect both types of events so that they're complementary rather than one over the other. And so there is an intersection where both the events come together with live broadcasting of the keynotes, etc. But it's not that, we're going back in person, forget digital. No, there is space for both of them. They have different purposes. The strategy for both should be different. And that's how you'll be able to scale.
Great. And Sarah, obviously, I know that you said you're fairly new to the industry, which is great to have you on the panel to have that balance. Could you share examples of your notable experiences and so far, and where the data has led you?
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure for having me. It really is, especially being sort of new to the industry, but it's giving me this opportunity. But to start how I started in the event industry, it was virtual. And I stumbled into it by accident, and that's I was hired as a social media manager, and I ended up taking on at the same time, since it was a small nonprofit, they were throwing a 300-person walk for their event for virtual, and it was right after the pandemic, and it really opened my eyes to the fact that there wasn't very much event software to even manage something like that, and virtually there wasn't. And it wasn't until a little bit later that I actually, when you talk about data, I looked at it, and that was our largest time when we had investments, was about 2020 to 2022, right after the pandemic, in virtual and digital, and that really launched our industry in event technology. But I actually did a little bit more in that when I worked at UCSF, because we continued with virtual after that, because a lot of people were very interested in doing those types of conferences.
And can you share the engagement strategy behind some of those conferences?
The engagement strategy, I believe, for a lot of those virtual events was really just embedded in marketing when it comes to it. The fact that it's virtual, you really need to reach out to people, and when you're in person, you have that interaction, and that's why I think people come to events. We're humans, we want to interact with people. But virtual was great because it did give that opportunity to people to come out. But I would talk to somebody who was a Stanford MBA and gave me some great business advice one time, and he said, any business out there is 60% marketing now, and you have to really put your into it. But what I think with event technology software, what we really have to look at, and especially with virtual, is in order to actually produce a really good revenue and put our full effort into it, so we're not putting as much money into it, is look at how much the marketing effort that's coming into it to really create virtual software. And that's from my experience of looking at everything, because sponsorships are important and sponsorships require marketing.
Absolutely. And for you, Lauren, with your events at the moment, for your digital events, what's the strategic aim? Is it to attract new audiences, or drive new business, or engage your staff?
It's all three. I think we have different tracks for different types of attendees. We have, really technical content for, developers. We have more introductory content for prospects. And then we've also really figured out a way to separate the strategy between the in-person and the digital, like Ashish was talking about earlier, because I think when live events came back and hybrid events, when people couldn't leave their house, they networked online because was the only way they could. And now I think that we're a few years out of quarantine. We see that virtual or in-person interactions can't be replaced. And there's a lot of great things. Like, we used to have games and like trying to connect attendees virtually. And I think for the virtual aspect, it's really the content. It's curating content, making it easy to find, easy to sort, and they don't have to be, it's not a one-to-one journey. If you have this activation in the expo hall for your in-person attendees, it doesn't necessarily translate virtually. I think the common misconception when virtual events first started, pre-pandemic, was that virtual events cannibalize the in-person, and data shows that is completely not true. I think virtual events give you a taste, see the content, really engage with learning, and then say, oh, this content's really interesting. These pictures online of these people playing this quest game look really awesome. Maybe next year I'll go. So I think there's a place for both of them, but you have to figure out what each audience is looking for and focus on the content for the digital, and figuring out the best way to present that content. In person, people will sit and watch something for 45 minutes, an hour. Online, we're a TikTok generation. People may not want to, but some people do. So what we're really trying to do is, my colleague coined the term modular content. So you can take a 45-minute presentation and have the full thing in your gated on-demand platform, but then also create different snippets, put it on different media posts, give a lot of it to product marketing, where they can distribute the content in different ways. And And I think that's really what we need to do. Use our flagship events as the big driver for the content, but then use the content year round. Like even this year, one thing, we used to brand our slide decks as Team 22, Team 23, and this year we don't have it say Team 24 because in person you're at Team 24, but you could be watching this 6 months from now in your home in Amsterdam. So I'm creating that evergreen modular content to promote like both leads and brand awareness is where I see this digital strategy going.
Absolutely. Do you agree? You're nodding. Is that the same for you?
100%. And just to piggyback on what Lauren was just sharing, digital events for us is more about launching new content. So we create all the content in-house. We have our own studios, so we can create our content in a very, very high quality with video and audio. And so what we do is we use our virtual conferences as launching pad for new content. And as Lauren was mentioning, now this content lives on throughout the year. So on the live day of the digital event is when the first time that content gets launched. You engage with your attendees through that, and then it lives on demand for a long time. But what we are doing with our virtual events now is, their networking online is not working. And why they're coming, we've realized why they're coming to our events is the quality of the content that we're producing for them that's highly curated for them. It's not just a bunch of content and let's throw it out there on the wall, whatever sticks with our attendees. It's very, very curated for who we're inviting. And then we're giving them the opportunity to ask questions. So after our live keynote is over, and if we've made some new product announcements, for example, we will actually call our product team to do a Q&A online after the keynote is over, where the attendees can actually ask questions like, what did you just announce? What does that mean for me? Tell us more about this, and we'll deep dive into that. Then in our breakout sessions, we'll give them an opportunity to ask questions where we're answering over chat. But now we're taking it to the next level, where after the breakouts are over, we're putting them in small roundtable type discussions where now they're able to be on video and actually take all the stuff that they've heard during the day and get into deeper discussions. That's when they're actually networking with their peers and deep diving into the content that they just consumed throughout the digital event. And what we're doing after these digital events, we're targeting the attendees to come to follow-up roundtables. And these roundtables like 20 people, 30 people. So now you're really getting to deep dive into that content. Then we'll invite them to in-person small roadshows that we're going to each different city within the US or within the world. So now they get to come and see us in person. So you see how there is a journey that we're creating from digital all the way down to in-person. And then we're prepping them for come to our in-person conference next year, because this is all going to be in one day when you come in person.
That really changes digital events from being just a tactic to a strategy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I really love to see. When I was on the agency side, I was really focused on the execution, and now being in-house, having events be a function of marketing and connecting the event as a piece in the overall journey, and seeing how everything fits together and where a roundtable makes sense, where a webinar makes sense, where we just launched some new products yesterday during our keynote. Keynote's always the place where you have your big announcements, and now it's what's next. Okay, so we have the keynote, we streamed it, we have it on demand. Then now we're going to take those, we're going to have webinars, we're going to have field marketing events, road shows, and you don't necessarily need new content. It's just curating the content in a way that better meet people where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, with you, obviously you come from a social media background, so your digital marketing background must help support how you advise and work with your clients for digital events and how you make that content. And
Well, I do have to say, with the social media background, it was a brief history in social media because I fell quickly in love with events and took off with that. But I will say, with my experience going back to that particular job, when we did that event, it feels like in the dark ages thinking about it, because what we were doing was looking at sponsorships and doing it by hand, and the content was reaching out to different people, and we really curated a strategy that would go to Gen Zs and really bring them into that particular event of fundraising, to have people come to the walk and do all of that. And it really took a lot of time and content and developing. And as I developed and looked at my job and everything and going into it of content and understanding that, and marketing in particular, I've come to think about it as, when I kind of reiterate this all the time to people, is the most important thing in 2024 is driving revenue back into your business. You can't say that enough. And when you think about your content, you should think about immediately who your audience is. You should analyze it with your data, think about it very closely, and understand it to, you should be able to feel like they're in your, you could be able to entertain for them in your front yard or something like that and have a barbecue with them. And content is wonderful and it's great, but I don't know, as a young person myself, the attention span for content. And that's when I started looking at demos for some of the different digital and virtual coming out there right now. And what I found is, looking at it in my own attention span, was that some of these were 3D and very interactive. And I thought that's great for capturing the attention. But then I thought about the strategy a little bit closer and going back to content. And I know I'm kind of jumping around a bit, but what I think would be more of an effective strategy when we look at it is if your content can go a little bit of a step further. And you've got to think long term. Is it going to entice your audience to be with you for a while? Can you build that membership base for your business so they're going to be there and keep coming? That one event is going to build into more in the long term. And that's the most important thing you need to think about with your content. It's not just one event. You should be thinking about it as, these are people you're attaching to your business, and even a membership software to build into that is part of marketing now. This is your audience in your business, is your money driver. And if that means your content is going to do that, then that's great. But your software also needs to be extremely enticing. And that's when I go into digital and virtual software, that you got to look at it very closely and specifically. Is it going to be great for your audience? And also finding if that's the content that's right for it as well, that comes with it.
that leads us really nicely.
Can I add something real quick to that?
Yeah.
So, if let's say your breakout session is 30 minutes long, and if your attendees are dropping off after 8 minutes, that's something wrong with the content, and that's something wrong either with the content or the delivery of that content. It's not because they just don't have the attention span, right? I mean, when we're on Netflix, why are we watching an hour-long show? It's keeping us there. It's highly engaging. It's curated for you. But why can't it be the same thing with the content that we're producing for our events, right?
I agree. I think a lot of times people want to blame the technology. I think any of us who have built a registration site, if numbers are low, people come to me and say, Lauren, we need to change the reg form. We need to change the website. I'm like, do we? Or is your content
It's easy
just
to point
not
to.
that exciting? So
Blame the tech.
May I add
blame
to,
tech.
Yeah.
May I add to that? I think a lot of people say that in event technology. My technology isn't working, it's not working out. And that's because your first event should be producing revenue. And the problem is that I think we don't, businesses, they kind of rush to thinking that we gotta do this. This is important. We gotta get this revenue coming back. And it's not something to be rushed. We got to look specifically at our marketing. Is it there? Is it going to be perfect? We got to look at, even more importantly, at other things as well. We got to make sure the website's already perfect. All of those things should be absolutely pushed in place. And data, most importantly, needs to be done right away. If you're not doing data immediately before your event in your business, then in looking at it precisely closely, then you're not, the software should be chosen correctly. You should be looking at all of it, but already have that taken care of beforehand, because that one event is crucial to capturing your audience. You want them to come back. You have that one opportunity, that good impression, and that technology is important to choose, because choosing a new technology, if we've ever tried to choose a project management system or CMR system, it's hard. So it's a really crucial choice. So make sure you don't rush into it and you look very closely at all the different aspects of it. And it's a long process. It could take you 2 months to build that up. But it's easy to blame technology, but did we do the preparation before? We have to ask ourselves to find that.
I think it also, you have to align with your stakeholders and their goals. You're talking about that your primary objective is driving revenue. Sometimes for some of our events it is, and sometimes it's not. I think a lot of times my stakeholders, they want to get the reg site up, they want to get numbers going, and we keep hearing the phrase, we're flying the plane while we're building it. But in event technology, we have to, obviously we're agile, and you can build a website with our tools that we use in, half a day. But it's what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to get? And what's your overall metric? What is your definition of success? For some of our events, I'm sure all of you are having the debate of gated versus ungated content. Some leaders focus on content views. We want to let's blast this on all social channels, views, eyeballs. We can't contact these people. We can't get them into Salesforce. But sometimes we rather have a gated virtual experience that connects to, we have campaign IDs for each of our breakout sessions, but learning that up front and really understanding what is the objective. And the thing I really like about being in event technology is listening. I might think I know everything, but I don't. But if you tell me what you're trying to accomplish, I can use our tech stack and help you get the best return on your investment to get what you are trying to achieve.
Absolutely. And I think let's talk about technology, right? That's what everyone's keen to hear. What technologies do you currently rely on for producing your events? And feel free to name drop here any of your favorite technologies.
We use a combination of areas. We use Swoogo, we use BigMarker, we use Brightcove, we use Pigeonhole, we use, and then with our studios, we use a lot of different technology to produce content.
That's quite a big tech stack.
Yeah, and but that the challenge with that is now it also all needs to work together seamlessly, and sometimes that's where things kind of go south. So sometimes I wish just one platform just did everything, and we didn't have to integrate a bunch of different technologies, because that would, especially for us in event tech or event producers, it would make our lives much easier. And also when it comes to dealing with vendors and renewals every year, it becomes very hard to renew all of the different technologies, tech stack, and it takes a lot of our time.
Yeah. What about you, Lauren? What's your...
Ours is pretty similar, and we have our friends in the room here.
Go on, name some of them. Go on. They'll appreciate the shout out.
Slugo, BW Events, Big Merker, Amigo, Pigeonhole, Kaltura. But to your point, I think a lot of these software can say that they can do it all, and certain vendors have different strengths. So I think one of my challenges is procurement and getting procurement to understand, like, I worked at a company that every time that they didn't want redundancies in software. So I had to go in front of the software council and make a case for a new tool. So when I needed an on-site tech company, they said, well, we already have this tool. You can print badges from there. I'm like, you can print badges from there, but explaining, well, this badge will be paper, and this one will be plastic, and this one has QR codes, and this one we have to rent different printers, and then also explaining event technology as a software and event technology as professional services, and making that distinction and educating even event, like our events team, the leaders are themselves, is just, we're such a nuanced group, and either you get it or we try help you understand it.
And it's really interesting about the Software Council. I mean, is there any advice that you can give to industry suppliers, or any pleas, or requests that can help you get through things like the Software Councils
Yes.
and that procurement?
So in our enterprise event space, anytime you onboard a new, we have personal data. All of our vendors get all of our attendee information that is highly regulated. They have to go through security reviews. Some of them take months. Some of them take days. And Scott Owens over there, we just onboarded his app Amigo, and he created...
Scott, give us a wave. Hi, Scott.
He created a full trust center for every question that a security team would ever ask, with, are you SOC 2 certified? Where are your data centers located? Everything was there, where I've seen other vendors where that process takes, honestly, it takes 6 months, because our teams are going back and forth. We're here, obviously, at Atlassian, I submitted a ticket, because that's what we do. But there were very few questions. It was like, here's the link to the trust center, maybe 3 back and forths, and they were done. So that is my biggest recommendation for those vendors. If you're in sales, work with your teams to get those answers and proactively provide all of those documentation. That's not the fun, sexy, wow part, but you can have all the fun part in the world, and if you can't pass the security review, we can't use you.
Definitely. Sarah, do you see that was that sort of similar advice that you'd give for industry suppliers, or is there any additional advice that you'd give from your experience?
Well, the industry spies and talking about, particularly, I was thinking, what industries and spies, do you mind if I, go back to about the trends of what technology to be used.
Yeah.
I know that's not president usually to go, but I was thinking about that as we were talking about that, and I'm going to make a bit of a bold statement here. Is the trend of all invent one software? I don't really believe it's a trend that we should really be following, not all trends. But you know what? That's a great idea, because what I've looked at is there's a huge market that I think we should be looking at when I do think of event software that we should be choosing in virtual and digital. And that is the ones that are Series A and Series B funding right now, because it's actually great for businesses because they are very well priced. They're very specific. They're working very hard at what they're doing and producing incredible technology that's very specific. And I think if you tailor your strategy to look at that, you might be able to adopt and afford two of those technologies and put them together. And that's something that I'm looking at in a strategy right now that I think would be really great for people to adopt when it comes to using digital and but using that right now of answering that question. But for industry trends to answer that as well, of what's happening in digital and virtual right now, I would say that's completely changing. We saw a huge influx during the pandemic. The pandemic with virtual and digital, we were very lucky. We survived a time when I'm sure we were all shaking in our boots with being event planners when it happened, just wondering if we were just going to survive. And in fact, we actually were one of the very lucky people that had prospered from that. But we're at a time where it's changing. We're going into in-person. People want to come back. They're excited. And it's not, they need to adopt to something new and change it around. And I see that industry changing, going where they're going to have to change their strategy themselves if they want to survive. And what I think that's going to go in that direction is more adopting more CMR software with it. In order for event management software, especially when it comes to digital and virtual, to bring your audience in and to keep them, is to bring CMR software in. And the reason being is because event management software now in 2024, it is just like project management. It's just like CMR. Businesses, they essentially need it. And if you can adopt that, where both you can provide that and take away that cost for a business, I think you have an easier chance to gain revenue and to have more people wanting to have it. And that would be great for digital and virtual events.
Great. I've just realised there's a question from the audience, so I'm going to tackle that if that's okay. Do you have any preferred solutions for interactive sessions? For example, if a session breaks into roundtables in person, which is what we sort of talk about, what tech is used to help the virtual audience follow suit? This is a huge struggle for our team, and all of our conferences are hybrid. Do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, so I know Zoom has always had the Zoom breakout rooms, etc., but it's always been a challenge because Zoom works in its own ecosystem and it doesn't really work well with other platforms, etc. So in the past, we've had to take them out of that platform and then put them in Zoom for breakouts, those kind of the breakout rooms, that's what they call them. But moving forward, so with our big marker solution, we're going to be able to do that inside our event itself because it's all built in. Your session, video players, everything is built in. But now, all of a sudden, you want to go into breakout, it's within your session, you click on it, and within the event, it opens a breakout room, and you're able to join it. So we're going to try the first time coming up in our event in May. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Can we follow you on
Please do.
LinkedIn? Yeah.
Yes. You can follow me on LinkedIn and you'll find out when the event is. It's free. You can register for it. You can check it out. But also how we're doing it is because it's a roundtable, we don't want tons of people there. I mean, we're going to have close to 2,000 people attending, so we can't have everybody in a roundtable. So how we've tackled that, and this is the first time we're doing it, that in our registration form, we've asked for, are you interested in signing up for a roundtable? There are limited spaces only. So that's how we've contained it to only those folks who've signed up for the roundtable, the rest will be attending the rest of the event. But if you signed up for the roundtable, you're also going to the roundtable.
Oh, that's really good. I see there's some people that run matchmaking programs, don't they? And others that, I know Crowdcom's down there, they have technology that you can move around the room as well. So I've seen other people do it in different ways. So yeah, definitely be interested in that feedback from how you're running it. Let's see. How long how are we going to do for time? Oh, 3 minutes. Got another question. What presentation formats are you finding to be the most successful today in a digital setting? Lauren, did you want to tackle that one?
Again, I think it depends on your audience and what their goals are. Again, we have deep technical training that you can't get in 20 minutes, but then we also have like theater sessions on the expo that are 15 minutes. So I think we have like 9 different session types at our event that's happening right now. So I really just think that there's no one size fits all, and you really have to curate the journey for your different audiences. We create personas of like, okay, this is what the developers are going to do, this is what marketers are going to do, and really tell them what is right for them. We had different landing pages for our different audience segments. Like we have 120 sessions this week. The average person goes to 4 sessions. So how do you narrow it down? How do you suggest? And then how do you give them that information in an easy to absorb fashion? Like, do we launch an agenda builder, curate that, then, having all of your platforms talk to each other, I always say that, we're using Swiggo for our website and Amigo for our app, but we are working very closely with BW Events to make sure that us nerds in this room would know when you go to the website, that's Swiggo, when you go to the app, it's Amigo, but to the attendee, it's the same thing. So you want to use the same. If you're having a star on your website, you want to have a star as the icon in the mobile app. If you have a star in one and a heart in the other one, then it's going to confuse people. So I think that's not really answering the question, but I think I can't tell you what content format is best, especially I work at one company, you might work in a completely different industry, but it's just making your content accessible and easily navigable for your attendees.
And just learning, I suppose. You're constantly, what I'm getting from all 3 of you is that you're constantly watching and learning and developing your knowledge. I think that if I take anything away from meeting you all, it's that you're growing your knowledge as event technologists and in the industry and being open to that. So one final question. I've got one here. I think we've got time for one more. Have we got one more? One more. Okay, so we're just going to squeeze one from the audience rather than from me. How has production evolved specifically for digital events over the years? It's probably quite a punchy question. I think we've got a couple of minutes, so if we can, How would you tackle that, Sarah?
Thank you.
Thank you. When I started in this journey, it was back in March of doing it, pouring through data. I went back to 2016 and looking for digital events. It was interesting. We were at basically what we would call the basic baseline, but that was interesting because that was the start, I believe, because that was when we got $40 million worth of investment. And when we get investment, that's when we're able to start an industry essentially. And digital events started to come about in 2018. And that's when we really started to see actually long-term investments when it came to acquisitions. And that's when you see something where the investors, that's where you can kind of see it, where they believe in it at that point. And with digital events in particular, that's when technology really started, I believe, to evolve and get really great. And it wasn't until 2020 with the pandemic and 2022, and I can't reiterate this enough, that digital events actually became something where what we see today of the starting point of that foundation of what we've looked at. We are going into the ones that we have basically seen of the startups that we all talk about today, that we have all kind of looked at, that have really established themselves. Those, I believe, kind of really boomed during the pandemic. But when I talk about what digital events I see now of going into, it's going to be an interactive setting. Imagine a world, we have a short attention span when we think about as humans. It's short, it's fast, we gotta immediately think about it, what captures our attention, and right away. And when we're interactive and we're in there, in that environment, there's nothing like it. We talk about AI, but when it's digital events, it doesn't matter about that. Digital events matters with AI of building that network and doing things that you can't do yourself. You should be doing that what you can possibly do and put in your effort. AI should be put into mundane tasks that take a long time. But the interactive part, you should be building yourself, because that's what's going when your attendees are there. That's what's going to build them. You're going to have a membership base. You're going to have that sponsorships they go to. They're going to be living in their own world eventually. And that's going to be very exciting, because people are going to be interested in going to these events more than ever. And I see that going in digital. It's going to be a whole new wave from the pandemic.
And do you agree? Do you?
Yeah, and what I'll add to that is, when it comes to digital event, when it comes to production for it, it's mainly the content production that a lot of the time and effort that goes into. So the quality of that content and how it's produced and how it's presented becomes very, very important. Back in the days, if you remember, the webinars used to be just audio and slides. Now everybody wants to see who's talking. I want to see that person. So that's where the production is becoming really important, as to showing the speaker's face as well as showing the slides and the content, going back and forth. For us, we're fortunate because we have our own studio, so we create all that content. We have in-house editors that edits all that content to present in the best quality possible. But we've invested in that because we've invested in digital events. So that comes with it. You can't just, let's just put them over Zoom and, people will listen to it and they'll engage.
I'm very jealous about your studio.
You can use it too.
Thanks.
This has been brilliant. Really great. We're out of time, unfortunately. I think we could sit here and talk about this for a very long time. I really appreciate you all joining me on the stage today. Where can people find you if you want them to find you? Obviously not to sell to you, but what's the best way to connect with you?
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn. But I will also be having, I'm very excited about it. It's my very first time speaking for an event. But at 1:15, I'll be over at the event theater doing a presentation on driving long-term business prosperity with AI matchmaking and strategy for events. And if anyone would love to come, I would love to have you, and it would be an honor for anyone to. I really love that. So you can come find me there, and I would love to speak to you more.
Amazing. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. And
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all.